All right, welcome to our Bible study this evening as we continue what we were looking at last week in the idea of being a good neighbor, being neighborly. And we're going to look at the other side of this with being friendly. One of the things I tried to do last week was draw the contrast that a lot of times we use the word friend way too loosely and way too freely. We'll call people who are just casual acquaintances our friends. We'll call people our friends that we barely even know, and a lot of times it's over small stuff. Somebody bought me a cup of coffee one time, or somebody was nice to me or helped me some small way, and oh, that's my friend. And I'm one of the worst for that, using the word loosely, especially in regards to ministry, because I have a lot of people who I have contacts with, people who I rely on and even need them. But truly, if we're looking at the biblical use of the word friend, it wouldn't be fair to classify them as friends because we don't have that level of connection. Because friend in the Bible is a very deep level of connection. We're going to see that straightforward in the lesson. A lot of times, what we call friend, in reality, the way we talk today, we probably should say acquaintance or colleague or something of that nature. And if we're looking biblically at the words that should be used, we probably should be saying neighbor most of the time, because so much of what we call friend, the Bible would not call a friend. There's very specific guidelines by which we should be measuring what we call a friend. And so, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into this and try to study what Proverbs says about it. 'Cause that's where we're going to be taking, of course, our thoughts from. Because if you don't know, we've finished the bulk of our study. I've still got a few things I want to get into on wisdom, and we'll probably do it at the end of this, not tonight, but the end of this series of study. But what we're doing before we get to that point is I'm trying to pick up a few things in Proverbs that are connected to wisdom. They're principles of wisdom. However, they're not the actual foundations or the building blocks of wisdom. A lot of times, they're things that wisdom should produce within our life. And we saw that last week with neighbor, being a good neighbor. Now we're going to see it with being friendly or being a good friend. So our text passage is Proverbs 17 and verse 17. It says, "A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man void of understanding striketh hands, and becometh surety in the presence of his friend." So, the two main points that I'm going to try to bring out tonight are this. One is that a friend is actually much closer of an acquaintance, much closer of a connection than we tend to realize. And two, you should be careful because of that who you're friends with. So it's actually quite a simple lesson. However, there's a lot of verses we're going to run through. So try not to make it too complicated. We'll have to hit the ground running and go ahead and get into it tonight. So the first thing I want you to notice is the statement that there a friend loveth at all times, and that there is a friend, and a brother is born for adversity. So a friend is somebody who you see the connection is deeper than just someone who cares about you a little bit, or who cares, into a small degree about things. So there's lots of people in this world who wouldn't want to see you harm. They don't want to see anything bad happen to you. They would help you if they could, but that doesn't mean that they actually deeply care about you to the point that they love it at all times. Like, they care about you in the good and the bad. They care about you even when you're having a bad day, even when you're not the most lovable person, that they still love you. Not most of the people you have contact with don't feel that way about you. Especially, I guess, another place where the word friend has really been cheapened is Facebook. And so if I put it like that, most of the people with whom you are friends on Facebook, they don't love you at all times. They like you, yeah, they're interested in you. They maybe they do love you at times, or maybe they care about you. But to say they love it at all times would be a great stretch. Half the people, because I've got a lot of Facebook friends, so more than half of the people I'm friends with on Facebook probably barely know who I am. They added me because they saw I was a preacher. They added me because they care about what I'm doing for the Lord. But to actually know me and have that connection with me, to love it at all times, they don't have that. And I'm not faulting them for it, because why should they have that? So understand that a friend, the first thing we want to look at is that a relationship with a friend is something that we're going to see rivals and exceeds many times that of even our family. In fact, that's what our next verse is going to be. Proverbs 18 and verse 24. We'll come back to verse 18, because that's the second half of our discussion tonight. But Proverbs 18 and verse 24 says, "A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. So we always read this and interpret that there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother is talking about God. And while that's not wrong, God is certainly a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. He has promised to never leave thee nor forsake thee. There's nobody who loves you more or wants to be there to help you more than God. There's nobody who is more friendly to you, more connected to you, and has a closeness to you than God, or at least there shouldn't be. So for sure, that's not wrong to use that verse and apply it to God. However, you have to bear in mind this is a proverb, and proverbs are meant to be little nuggets of wisdom that you can hold on to, that their meanings should be contained within the context there. And so when you think about this as a proverb instead of as a statement to be applied to the Bible as a whole, but as its own individual proverb, a nugget of wisdom that you can memorize and hold it in your heart, what does it say? It says that a man that hath friends must first show himself friendly. So that's the first balancing act, because you notice this is one of those verses where you have the colon in the middle. So it's like you have a something, seesaw, whatever, and you've got the pivot point in the middle, and the two halves of the verse have to balance each other. So your first half is a man that hath friends must show himself first friendly. So the statement there is actually really simple, but it seems to slip by most people. Is if you want friends, you actually have to be friendly. People are not going to develop this kind of love or this kind of connection with you if you're not a friendly person. And that's why, to be honest, friendship is not something that you're going to attain with everybody. Not everybody is going to be a friend to you and so forth. You're not going to be a friend to everybody, and you shouldn't be, because the truth is friends should be a special level of connection. But for friendship to be possible, somebody first has to show themselves as being friendly. Somebody has to be the one who comes forward and shows themselves as being a friendly person. And that's why, again, if you compare this to God and use Christ as example, yeah, Christ has truly been a friend in that he came and did everything that was necessary to establish connection with us. In fact, to be honest, I feel like I'm doing it injustice when I describe Christ if I simply describe him as a friend. That's not to say I don't like singing What a Friend We Have in Jesus. It's just that it feels like an injustice, but the principles are there and you can use them to explain this verse, that Christ was someone who I am friends with him because he first showed himself friendly to me. I had done nothing to justify him wanting to be my friend. I'd done nothing to justify him wanting to establish a connection and a relationship with me. But he did that. He made that connection. Now, the reason why this matters in regards to the second half of the verse to make that balancing act is there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And this is what you have to understand is it's kind of like what we talked about last week, is that so many times we put an undue or an unjust amount of importance on family in terms of like brothers and sisters and these things. And I'm trying to be careful in this because it's a very fine line of what I'm talking about. Because you should be able to trust in your family. You should be able to rely on them and depend on them. But as anybody who has grown distant to their family because life has changed knows, that's not guaranteed just because of a blood connection. There's people I know watching right now, watching this. I know you're watching it, so I know what I'm saying to be true, that you grew up, you had your family, you loved them, you're close to them, you still love them today. This day, you'll love them until you die because they're your brother or your sister, they're your family, but you're not friends with them right now. You don't have that closeness or that connection, and you are not going to be able to for good reasons, because friendship is dependent upon a few things. Friendship is dependent upon someone being friendly. Friendship is, as we're going to see as we go through this lesson, is dependent upon having some reason to have connection with this person. You shouldn't be friends with just anybody. You should be friends with people who actually are going to be pointing and directing and helping you to go in good directions. So if somebody is a bad influence, let's say, as we'll say, I'm trying not to get too far ahead, but I'll go ahead and throw the verse out there and just try not to get into it. But we're told later to not be friends with a wrathful man or an angry man, as we'll learn his ways. So, you have to be careful sometimes with family, because family, you are connected to them because of blood. It's not always you're connected to them for the right reasons. Your family may not have the right values, the right morals, the right things that are pointing you in the direction you should go. Your countrymen, all these people with whom you hold a connection that is not because of choice. you have to be careful about how you let people like that influence you. It's easy, and I'm using, maybe I can use country for a second for a reason, because I live in a place where lots of people come from lots of different cultures and lots of different backgrounds, and there's expectations and high standards and all this stuff put on you because of your background and your culture that you come from. And there's a certain camaraderie that comes naturally when you meet somebody who's from the same place you are. There's certain expectations with that, but that connection is not one you chose. That connection is one that you hold with that person simply because that's the place of your birth. And that's not something that really should shape you the way you think it should. There are things that you should hold and carry with you. Sure, it's not wrong that you carry things with you that you learned growing up. I mean, there's certain parts of my personality that are unique to me because of where I grew up at, because of what the people who are around me, because of my family and so forth. I'm not insulting them. I'm not saying anything negative to that. But what I have to understand is that just because they do something a certain way in Martinsville, Virginia, doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. Just because they do something a certain way in Martinsville, Virginia, doesn't mean that I should do it that way. That connection is not the most powerful connection in my life. My chiefest, most important friend is Christ, and he's the one who should be influencing and determining who I am. And so I should be careful sometimes. And that's why there's this idea of a friend to stick it closer than a brother, is to understand that there are friends in your life. There are people who you have chosen to have a connection with because they showed themselves friendly, not because of blood, not because of birth or some unmerited thing. They have this as like a king is born into his privilege. It's something. There are people in your life who you feel entitled, you feel responsible to. That's the word I'm looking for. You feel responsible to them simply because you share the same parents, because you have the same grandparents, because you come from the same place, because you went to school together. It's not because they've earned that position in your life. It's not because it's good for you that they have that position in your life. It's not because these are people who are good influences on you. They have this position because you feel a responsibility to them because of some other connection. Where friends, the thing that makes them interesting and makes them special amongst all these people in your life, is that friends don't occupy that position because of some unmerited or unearned position, or because of birth or whatever. Your friends are there because you chose them. There's a saying that kind of sums up what I'm getting at, and that is that friends are the family that we choose. And while you could argue about the correctness of the statement, there is certainly something there that you should take away. And that's understanding that friends are people you choose to have a connection with. You choose these people because they first show themselves friendly. And that's why friends many times are closer to you than family. That's why, again, some of you listening right now know that there are things in your life going on that you'll go to friends. Friends that you've made at church, friends you've made at work, friends you've made wherever, but people who you've learned that these people actually care about me. These people want to be in my life. These people are important and special to me, not just because we share a similar place of birth or similar heritage or a similar family or so forth, that we have certain ancestors in common or whatever, but these people are important to me because they've chosen to be a part of my life. They've chosen to be important to me. When you look at those people, those are the ones that are usually there for you. When you really need help, those are the ones who are there for you. When you have something truly exciting in your life, most time those are the ones you want to share it with first. A lot of times you'll feel a sense of obligation to share it with family or whatever first, but your friends, and that's not to say your family can't be friends, but your friends are the ones you'll share it with first. And a lot of times when your family is the one you want to share it with first, is because you're still friends with your family. That's the thing I'm trying to get us to understand, is that what makes somebody close to us is not, birthright or blood or those kind of things. It's the connection we've made as friends. It's the fact that we have chosen this person to be a special part of our life. They've chosen to be a part of our life. They've chosen us and so forth because somebody showed themselves friendly, and now there's a connection. And many times that connection is closer than that of a brother. Many times that's closer than the connection that comes just from having been raised in the same home with somebody. I guarantee most everybody who will ever listen to this message, if they're honest with themselves, have people in their lives who you are closer to than your own siblings, simply because of the fact that you have established that connection. You've established that kind of love, that a friend loveth at all times, that a friend is there as someone that, they've chosen to be a part of your life, as opposed to being obligated or responsible into it. So that's the thing to understand about friends, is it's actually a very special and precious connection because of the fact that they are someone who's very close in our life. They're someone who, for whatever reason, has earned that position, whether it be through being friendly or doing something else. In fact, that's the other side of this part of the discussion, is to realize that sometimes friends are not chosen for the right reasons. It's not unusual that somebody has friends that that they have that connection with, but it's not for the right reasons. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. Proverbs 19 actually has a whole series of verses that talk about that. So let's go there. Proverbs 19 and verse 4. And I'll read a whole passage here. It says, "Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. Many will entreat the favor of the prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him." Another verse also I'll put with this is Proverbs 14:20. "The poor is hated of his own neighbor, but the rich hath many friends." And so there's a point that friendship doesn't always come for the right reasons, but it does come because we've chose it. So sometimes people will choose their friends because they're looking to who they can take the most profit from. So he's saying if somebody's rich, they have no problem with establishing this kind of connection with somebody, where people want to be around them, people want to be influenced by them, people want to have connection. People who give gifts have no problem with this because people want the profit. So in reality, there are people who their friendships are all for the wrong reasons. That's quite a common thing in this world. However, we have to be careful to make sure that we're not doing that. We're not choosing friends for the wrong reasons. Friends should be helpful and reliable because they have this closeness, because they have a connection that many times can go beyond that of even family. And if you struggle with that, let me give you an example of a great example. I think of this in the Bible is David and Jonathan. That David has said to love Jonathan with a love greater than that of what you would love, like even like loving a wife or loving, he says, greater than the love of women. That David loved Jonathan with all of his heart. This was, his closest companion in the world other than God. And you look at his brothers, he had no connection with his brothers. His brothers were awful to him. His brothers treated him like he was dirt. But Jonathan, who had no responsibility to David, Jonathan, who should have saw David as an enemy, because David, even before he come to the realization that God had chosen David to be the next king, David at the very least was a potential usurper to come in and marry his sister and take his place as the next heir to the throne. But when he found out that God had chosen David to be the next king, he said, "Look, I'm happy for you. If that's what God wants, I support you in this. I'll gladly stand by and stand out the way. I'm not going to get in the way of what God's doing in your life." Jonathan was David's friend because Jonathan was the ultimate example of what a friend should be. He was someone who loved David enough and loved God enough that he was going to try to push David towards what was right. He was willing to help David even when it come at cost to himself and so forth. So that's why we have to be careful about who we're friends with, because friends have that deep established connection where we open ourselves up to them. We don't open ourselves up to just everybody, but friends, we do that. We open ourselves up to them and to their influence because of the fact that friends are somebody who we choose to have that connection with because they've established reason for us to. And I'll give you some verses to go along with that. Proverbs 27 and verse 6 says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." When looking at friends, your friends should be the people you choose to have this kind of relationship with, should be people that you can trust them. Like, they're not just going to be yes men who tell you whatever you want to hear. Don't get me wrong, you want friends who are going to support you and they have your back and they're willing to stand with you when others are attacking. Don't get me wrong in any of that. But your friends need to be the kind of people that when they're talking to you, they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. And I can give some examples. I'll give an example from my own life of what I mean, because there's a fine line between what I mean. Uh, we pick on Eli a lot, but I'll say this for Eli. Like when it comes to Eli, when he's talking to you or anybody else, he's going to stand with me because he's my friend. Uh, Now, maybe he doesn't like me anymore. Maybe it's changed, but but historically, this has been his testimony in the years that I've known him, that he will stand with me and he'll fight with me, and I know, or fight for me, and I know that he's someone who has my back and all of that. But when he's talking to me, if I'm wrong, he has no problem with talking to me respectfully and trying to explain, maybe you're not right about, maybe you need to reconsider this. And there's been times where he's changed my mind by showing me, maybe you should be more compassionate about this. Maybe you should be, slower to do something on this. Maybe you should just wait. And there's been times where he's been able to influence me and change my opinion on that because of the fact that I do trust him to not just tell me what I want to hear, but to tell me what I need to hear. Now, from your perspective, you may not get to see that because from your perspective, he's being a genuine friend and he's fighting to protect me. But I know him that when I'm talking to him, he's there to tell me not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. And to be honest, that's usually what I look for in a friend. Now I'm using Eli's example because most people I'm expecting to watch this are going to be people in my church, people who understand that, and they know you can relate to what I'm talking about. But when I look at my friends, like pastors who I choose to actually be friends with, like the guys who I'm going to call when I need advice, the ones I'm going to talk to, the ones I'm going to invest my time and care into, uh, those people are the ones who trust them. I trust them that they're going to tell me. I don't necessarily trust that I'm going to agree with them once they've given me their opinion, but I trust them to tell me when they think I'm wrong, to tell me, what they think and not just to go along with me on something. There's a pastor in my area that he doesn't normally watch these videos, so I don't think he's going to come across this. But Brother Kendall Smith is a pastor in my area that some of the pastors know I'm talking about. That I've always went to him for advice even before we established friendship. Back when I was just a young preacher, he didn't know really much. He knew who I was. We went to Bible college together and stuff, but he didn't really have that connection with me because I was still new. I just met him. But I found out very quick from talking to him that he's someone who I can trust him to tell me when I'm wrong, but not to try to hurt me. He's not just trying to hurt me or discourage me. He's actually going to try to help me. And that's what you look for in a friend, is someone who's going to try to help you. In fact, let's keep reading because there's not just this one verse here in Proverbs 27. Proverbs 27 verse 9, ointment and perfume rejoiceth the heart. So doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. So you want a friend who you can trust their counsel so that when they give you advice, it's like smelling a sweet perfume to you. It's something that rejoices your heart. When you smell something like a sweet perfume, you get that good smell. Or since Stefania's watching you, since you made a joke about the manager, when you smell the grill and you smell the bacon or whatever, you smell a nice food cook. No, I shouldn't pick on Stefania, but when you smell those things that are sweet to you, whether it's perfume or, to be honest, some of us, it is when I smell bacon might be more sweet to me than perfume. But when I smell whatever it is that's sweet to me, it rejoices my heart. It's, I like that. It's, in fact, sometimes I get disappointed because there's certain things Lori cook that smells like my favorite food that she makes. And I go downstairs and I realize it's not my favorite food. It's something else. And that's hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so I realize that, what she cooked is not what I thought. And then I get sad. But when I first smell it, I'm excited because I think I'm going to get what I want. But that same rejoicing that you get when you smell something sweet, you should have that when you're with your friends, the people you have that connection with, that when they're giving you advice, it's sweet to you. You realize that even if you don't fully agree with, you appreciate the place that this is coming from. You respect it and know that it's coming from a good place. It's not just somebody who's stubborn and proud and thinks you have to do everything their way, but it's somebody who's actually trying to help you. That's the kind of relationship we're talking about. Then Proverbs 27 as well, as we keep going through this passage, verse 10 says, thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not, neither go into thy brother's house in the day of calamity, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother is far. So we actually talked about the other part of this verse quite a bit last week, because it's part of the point that, you shouldn't just judge your connections, your relationships, off of things like blood connection and things like that. It should be based off of other things. That's not to say you can't have family that are friends. Your brother can be your neighbor. He can live right next door to you. Your brother can also be your friend. But the point is that if we just emphasize that, okay, well, I have to rely on this person. My loyalties all have to be to this person because we come from the same family. We have the same father, same mother, same grandparents, whatever. Proverbs is telling you that's foolish, to be honest. That relationships should be built off of more than that, if we're going to be honest. And so friendship has to be built off of more. The same way that being a neighbor is not about that kind of connection, but about community, about, do I have contact and connection with this person so that, I'm around them and I'm able to help them and they're able to help me. He's saying the same, something similar with friends. And so he says, thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not. And the principle of the verse is that, you're going to need people, and you should look and learn how to rely on people who are actually able to help you, those who are around. And so the idea is, if you're having a bad day and you need help right now, and your brother is like mine, he's across the ocean, he would do anything in the world to help me, because my brother is not just my brother, he's my friend, but he can't cross the ocean in a day to be here for me. But I have neighbors who are close. I have people, because the neighbor doesn't just have to be the one who lives next door to you. It's people that you have contact with, you have community with. And so I have neighbors throughout this whole city and throughout area all around me that are close. And the more pressing the need, the closer they need to be. If I need help right now, then the best person to help me is the one in my house. If I need help, that I need to go beyond that, then it's better if I have someone close to me that can help me than having to wait for Safanya to drive an hour to get here to help me. Because I know he'll do it, but it's better if I have a relationship with my neighbor that I can go across and ask them if it gets like that. So what I'm getting at is that we have to understand that friendship should be important to us. I guess what I'm trying to say. We shouldn't just take advantage of it. Then verse 14. Sorry, no, we'll come back to verse 14 of Proverbs 27. Verse 17 says, "Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend." So the relationship between you and your friend should be one that you sharpen one another. That as you influence one another, and that's what a lot of friendship's going to be about. It's about having that connection where you've established some connection with a good reason to this other person. So that you love them, they love you, you trust one another, and so forth, that you should sharpen one another. It should be that when I come around, so I used Eli as my example, I use Safanya. When I'm around Safanya, my countenance should be sharpened, which, to be honest, would speak to an idea of me. Your countenance is the way you look. So in this case, if you're looking at it just directly, the idea is that I should lighten up. I should brighten up when I'm around him because he's my friend, and I should enjoy being around him. We should encourage one another and help one another in that way. So that's what a friendship should look like. Then Proverbs 22 and verse 24 says, "Make no friendship with an angry man." I think I put this on here twice. I don't think I meant to write that. For this one, I think I meant to put down another verse here. So, okay, yeah, Proverbs 22 and verse 11 is the one I was aiming for here. Verse 24 we'll do in the second part. Proverbs 22 and verse 11 says, "He that loveth pureness of heart, for the grace of his lips, the king shall be his friend." So we have to choose friends for the right reason. He says a king chooses his friends because they have pure heart, because they love to have a pure heart, and he listens to the way they speak and how gracious their words are, and that makes the king friends with this person. That makes the king choose to have connection with this person. If you're looking for who you should choose to have connection and friendship, it shouldn't just be that I have to be friends with this person because we went to school together. I have to be friends with this person because we grew up together. I have to be friends with this person because we work together. The people you choose to be friends have a profound effect on you. They affect your countenance. They're the ones you're going to for advice. They're the ones you're often calling on when you have need. They're the ones you're trusting them to tell you when you're wrong. You need friends. They're desperately important in your life. So be careful that you're choosing them for the right reasons. Don't be like the people who seek after the rich because, they give gifts, but choose them for the right reasons. A good king is going to choose his friends based off of who he knows they're going to do right and they're going to speak right. That's some pretty good advice for you. Pick your friends, the people you choose to have that kind of connection with, the people you want to be a part of your life and you want to be close to so that they have this kind of influence we're talking about. Choose them based off of the fact that you know that person is someone who wants right. They're not just seeking what they can get from you. They're just trying. Their focus is to do what's right. They're always focused towards right, and you can trust them to speak right and do right. That's what we should be looking for. Which brings us to the other part of this, and that is, and we'll, of course, we close this by a certain time, so don't worry that I'm only coming to the second part and we're 30 minutes in. I'll still finish on time today. Um, Going back to our passage in Proverbs 17, this time verse 18, a man void of understanding striketh hands and becometh surety in the presence of his friend. The other half of this is what should be the natural conclusion. This is where wisdom really becomes important. Is wisdom is important in what we talked about, because you should consider how important friends are and choose friends wisely. The other side of this is, in choosing friends wisely, you should make sure that you're not letting friendship abuse you, or that you're abusing friendship. What he's talking about in this verse, when you're being surety for somebody, is like being a co-signer. So it's like the idea, if you want to go sign for a loan and your credit's not good enough, your income's not good enough, whatever, you need somebody to come in and put their name on there and say, look, if they don't pay, I will pay on their behalf. That's a surety. We call it a co-signer today. In the Bible, it's a surety. You're putting yourself up as the guarantee that if this person fails on their loan, you're going to come in and you're going to pay it for them. And he's just telling you, you lack understanding if you're willing to just go and be a surety for anybody. And in this case, he's even talking about a friend. He's saying, if you're just going to go be a surety for your friend, you do this because you lack understanding, because it's a dangerous thing to commit yourself to take other people's debts upon yourself. In fact, there's another passage I'll go to in Proverbs 6 that goes into this in a little more detail, that explains a little bit more about it, why it's a dangerous thing and why he's saying this. Because we have the idea, I'm friends with somebody, I love them, I'm close to them, so I should just go put my neck out for them. Whatever they need, I'm there for them, I'll do it. But God's saying, no, it's not wise to just say, because of friendship, just throw yourself into whatever danger situation comes. Even when somebody has earned their place as your friend, you still should be careful about what you're putting your neck out for and what you're putting at risk for them, because you have to be careful not to be abused or abusive in your friendship. So Proverbs 6 and verse number 1 says, my son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with thy words, with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go, humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. So what is he saying? He's saying, when you let yourself get in this situation where somebody's your friend, you want to help them out, and so you say, okay, I'll be the co-signer, I'll be surety for you. I'll take your debt on myself. If you don't pay, I'll pay it. He says, okay, once you do that, you're trapped. You're not getting out of this. You have to honor your agreement. If you said you're going to do it, you have to do it. So he says, the day comes when your friend traps you, when you're in his hand. It means he's caught you. When that day comes, when he doesn't pay and you have to come and pay in his behalf, go do it. Do it fast and be quick about it. But why should you the question in the passage is, why should you put yourself in this situation in the first place? So you have to be careful. And there's a tremendous, in fact, the best passage in the Bible, or I don't know, maybe not in the Bible, but for sure it's one of the best in the whole Bible. It's definitely the best in Proverbs, is in Proverbs chapter 1, when he's talking about people coming to you and trying to make a friendship. And they're saying, come, let us put all our money in one lot. Let us go. And it gets worse. Like every step gets worse. It's like, let us go and seek the precious life and seek the innocent, and let's plunder them and take all their stuff, and let's kill them and let's hurt them. And it's like, it's really awful. By the end of it's like, how would anybody agree to this? But if you actually read the passage and understand what he's going through there in Proverbs 1, the idea is that nobody starts there. The idea is that you make friends with the wrong people, and little by little, by letting those people influence you, and little by little feeling obligated that you have to go along and you have to continue and do what they ask because it's my friends. I can't disappoint my friends, I can't betray my friends. That you get yourself in more and more trouble. So there is a great lesson in that, and understanding that just because somebody has won the place, because it is a position that's won. Just because somebody won the position of friend in your life, for whatever reason they were able to do that, doesn't mean you have to get yourself in trouble over it. Doesn't mean you have to let them take an undue amount of influence on you, or get you into a place where you're doing things God wouldn't have you to do. Because to be honest, God should be your chiefest friend, and if you have to betray Him to help your other friends, then there's something wrong. So that's the thing is, as we're picking friends, we should pick people that are not going to require us to turn against God or betray God in the process. Then Proverbs 22 and verse 24. This was the one I said we would get to in just a moment. Proverbs 22 and verse 24 says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go." Your friends have, in all honesty, they have the biggest impact on you. Your family has had the biggest impact on you up to this point in your life, typically. Like, I mean, in terms of shaping who you are, there's nobody who theoretically has shaped you more than your parents. Now, some people, there will be differences because maybe they were raised by an aunt or an uncle. Maybe they spent more time with a grandparent. Maybe there was a family member who lived with them and had a lot of influence. It's not saying that this is a blanket statement that applies to everybody. But in general, the way the home has been designed, the way God made life to be, the people who shaped you more than anybody else in this world are your parents. And then the people who've typically had the second highest level of influence on you tend to be that next level of connection, like brothers and sisters, or even sometimes grandparents. And then it extends beyond that to where it's aunts, uncles, cousins, so forth. Those people tend to be the ones who shaped you growing up because those were the connections you had. However, if you think back to it, in reality, your friends typically had a pretty big effect on shaping who you are. Now, to be honest, for me growing up, I had friends. Like I had quite a lot of friends with school. I was somebody who, before I got saved, I was a bully, but yet for some reason, I don't know, I still don't understand it today. People, maybe they pretended to like me just to not have to deal with my problems. But in general, I got along with most people I went to school with. And as a preacher, whether they liked me or not, they at least were respectful to me. And I was friendly with most of them. I was at least neighborly, if we're looking the Bible term for it, to where I got along with most people I went to school with. However, in terms of really like close personal friends, I didn't have a lot growing up. I don't know. I was more reserved to myself. I mostly was with my family, like my brother and my sister and my mom. To be honest, my dad and I weren't as close growing up just because of the way our relationship was at the time. Of course, now I've made that clear. We're much closer as Christ worked in both of our hearts. But growing up, it was something where normally I would have one friend who I was really connected to at the time. And so most of my life, it was a boy named Nick, that me and him had a big effect on each other. And like I look at my life today and I see certain things that I picked up from him and his family. And I assumed that he would be able to say the same, even though we weren't always in the same area. There were many times that he would move away to go stay with his mom because his parents were divorced. But when he was around, we seemed to just come together and connect. I had a cousin who I was friends with that had influence on me and had an impact on who I am. My brother, of course, was probably, to be honest, the best friend that I had growing up. And even to this day, like if I had to look at someone who who loves me and do most anything for me, of course, my mom. But in terms of like someone who I have that friendship with, it probably still would be my brother, even though we're separated so far. But I have to say that like the one who had the highest level of influence on me was him, outside of my mom. And that's because, of course, to be honest, when you're little, even if your parents are special in their relationship because they're not friends, there's something more important. Your parents typically are your friends when you're little. And with my mom, she was very much my friend as much as my mom as well. So she had that influence on me. And right now I hear Josiah screaming, so we may not be friends in a few minutes when I get done. But uh, my point being is that when I look at what shaped me and made me into the person I am today, it has been friends. It had been friends, whether it's my family who I am friends with, or it has been friends that those few that I made that close connection with in school. Or to be honest, most of my influence has come by my preacher friends and pastor friends and friends in ministry that I've made as I got a little bit older in life. That really, around 15, as I was in my late teens, that really shaped me into who I am. And some of them I don't have that connection with anymore, but when they had it, they had a profound impact on who I am. And today, as I'm looking, people who I'm friends with and people who I spend the time with and people I'm connected with, they're the ones who who have the most impact on who I am from day to day. Like the people in my church are the ones who I spend most time with. You are my friends. You are the ones who I'm invested in. I keep up with you. I care about you. I know what's going on. I spend the most time with you. That's not to take away from my friends who live far away, but my friends who I spend the most time with are the ones in my church. That's where most of my time and energy is invested. And so normally, when I'm trying to think of somebody who I would like to, I found something new. I want to share this with somebody. It's one of you. If I'm trying to think of something, somebody I want to talk to today or whatever, it's one of you. And I have to be careful. I keep hitting the microphone as I get excited. Uh, but the point is that friends have that impact on you. They shape you, they have influence over you to the point that God says you better be careful with who your friends are. Because if you're friends with an angry person, you're going to learn to be an angry person. If you're friends with somebody who's a liar, you're going to learn to be a liar. You're friends with a thief, you're going to learn to be a thief. If you're friends with Jonadab, you're going to be in trouble. The point is that when you look in the Bible, friends have a profound impact on people. Sometimes the friend is the one who's getting them out of trouble. Sometimes the friend who's the one's getting them in trouble. And if you don't know what I mean by Jonadab, Jonadab was Amnon's friend who convinced him to do the evil that he did to Tamar, his sister, who got him killed and ruined his whole life. Friends have some of the highest level of impact on who we are as a person. I'm not going to say highest because in truth, that should probably be parents. It should be God more than anybody, but it should oftentimes be parents, pastors, leaders who are in our life, things like that. But beyond that, it's going to be friends usually. And you have to be careful that you're not letting that connection cause your friends to lead you in a bad direction. That you're not letting it be like, well, we're friends, so how can I betray them? How could I not do this? If your friends are becoming harmful to you, if you're the furious person teaching you to be furious, then at some point you have to step aside and realize that this is not a good friendship for me. Sometimes you have to try to help deliver that person to get them out of the trouble they're in. But the fact is, friendship is one of those things that how can two walk together unless they agree? And so what's going to happen is either when there's a problem like that, either they're going to have to be changed because you're going to help deliver them from the bad direction they're going in, or they're going to pull you in the bad direction with them. And so that's why we have to be so careful about who we pick as friends in the first place and then how far we let it go afterwards. Now, I just have a couple more verses to throw out here. Proverbs 16 and verse 28 says, a froward man stirreth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. So the last part of my notes here is just to say to be careful in this idea of abuse in friendship. To be careful about who you let come between you and your friends. Because while you also have to be careful, like we've been talking about what direction your friends are taking you, your friends are there because they earned that position. They're there because they showed themselves as somebody who was friendly to you, somebody who earned a right to be a part of your life and earned a right to have a connection with you, to have that influence and so forth. So be careful about who you let come in and separate you, because God says it's a froward person who comes in and tries to separate friends. Now, that's not to say if you have a friend that's leading you in a bad direction and somebody else who is a friend comes and tells you, you should be careful about this person or take you in a bad direction. Well, the one who's trying to help you is a better friend than the one who's trying to hurt you. So I'm not saying that there won't be a time and a place where somebody has to try to separate you from a toxic friend, from someone who's poisoning you and taking you in a bad direction, who's abusing the friendship. But in general, when somebody comes and they're trying to cause problems between you and your friend, you need to step back and ask, is this somebody who should have the ability or the right to do that? Because many times it's a froward person who's trying to do that. Then Proverbs 17 and verse 9 says, he that covereth a transgression seeketh love, but he that repeateth a matter separateth very friends. So again, somebody who tries to cover you, someone who protects you from certain things, like, they know you've done something wrong, but they're going to cover you, they're going to help you. That person does that because they want you to love them. The person who comes in and they're trying to they're gossiping, they're spreading things, that person's just trying to separate you from your friends. So be careful about who you're letting come between you and your friends, as much as you're being careful about how much your friends are leading you and what direction they're taking you. And then finally, Proverbs 27 and verse 14, one of the verses I always have a good connection to. Like it says, he that blesseth his friend with a blessing early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. So the point is, don't abuse your friendship. I've been saying don't let them abuse you, but also don't abuse your friendship. Just because you're friends with somebody doesn't mean you have to be rude to them, doesn't mean you have to be a burden to them, doesn't mean you have to be a curse to them. Now, the point of this verse is that if you're the kind of person that you get up early in the morning and you're a morning person and you're excited and you wake up and you just want to wake everybody else up, that nobody likes that. And that you're going to be counted a curse by your friends. You just need to calm down. Most people are not morning people, and most people don't want somebody waking up in the morning yelling and screaming like a crazy person. That's actually the point of the verse. Whether you like it or not, that is the point. But the principle we can take away for tonight's lesson is this. Don't abuse your friendship. Just because you're friends with somebody, don't expect them to just put up with your bad qualities. Learn to treat them decently as well, because to have friends, you must be friendly. All right, so that's my lesson for tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I think, to be honest, this is something that I don't think people realize how much they need this, because as a pastor, I have found more and more, the more I work with people, a lot of the problems they have are either that they are doing things out of a sense of obligation to country, to family, to other people, but it's people like, why are you letting these people tell you what to do? These people they barely care about you. Like, they don't spend time with you. They don't call you. They don't talk to you. They don't spend time around your kids. They're not invested in your life. And you're letting them dictate and determine how you're going to live your life. Just because somebody grew up in the same house as you doesn't mean they're actually your friend. Just because somebody grew up on the same street as you doesn't mean they're your friend. A friend is someone who has proven that they deserve that situation because they showed themselves friendly. And if you cultivate a good friend, that friend can be closer to you than any brother can be. And the truth is, you can have friendship with your brothers and sisters and so forth, but it doesn't just come because of blood. It comes because somebody showed themselves friendly. So if you want to be friends with your family, be friendly to them. If you want, for whatever, you want to have friends, be friendly with whoever. Whoever it is you want to be friends with, be friendly with them first. Earn the position of friend. Don't just expect it because of blood or whatever. But also don't let loyalties that were not earned, loyalties that came simply because of birth or location, proximity, whatever, determine who you count as a friend. Your friend is somebody who earned that position. That's why I say, friends are the family we choose is actually a pretty biblical statement, even though you won't have a Bible verse for it. It's fine. You said sound doctrine. So wrong Bible study, but I appreciate the thought behind it. I appreciate the others who've left comments already. And I'm encouraged by that. Let me say also to pray for Norick. I've been on the phone with him today, as I shared with some people. I don't even know who I've shared this with. I don't think many. Norick is in the hospital at UZ right now. He's had some problems. Most people in the church right now won't know him personally because you haven't got the opportunity to meet him, but he was in the church in the very beginning. He was somebody who was a big help to me in the beginning of the church, but he just, through different problems in his life, got out of church, got away from God and away from the church for a while, and he's at a really burdened and down place right now because of it. And I really would appreciate your prayers for him. I was going to go try to see him today, but it just had too much going on trying to help Nick with moving. So I'm going to try to see him on Thursday, but just pray for him and pray for the situation there, that God would give me wisdom to be able to help him and know how to help him. The fact that I'm sharing this on a Tuesday Bible study should tell you how serious of a prayer request that is, because normally I don't get into that kind of prayer request on a Tuesday night. So I would appreciate it if you'd pray for it. All right. I don't see any questions coming in, just some encouraging comments. So I'm going to go ahead and look to close out the live stream. Appreciate you being a part of it. I'm actually surprised that everything went as well as it did, because I had stayed on the phone with him as long as I could and almost ran out of time to get ready. I wrote the last note on my paper here at exactly the time the Bible study was supposed to be starting. So praise the Lord, everything went as well as it did. All right, we look forward to seeing everybody at church tomorrow. We'll be continuing our study in Hebrews. I've decided to go ahead and go into chapter 9 as of right now, but it's always possible I could change my mind by tomorrow and stick around in chapter 8 a little bit longer. Yeah. Yeah, Svani says pray for all of us because Albra's cooking tomorrow. But anyways, do be sure to be there. So support her so that she'll feel more comfortable to cook. So maybe if you're worried about it, bring you an antacid or something you need to settle your stomach. But at least show up and support as somebody's cooking who doesn't normally cook, so that they'll be encouraged and they'll get more involved and stuff like that. So anyways, I do appreciate all of it. We'll go ahead and close out the live stream. Hope to see you at church tomorrow and hope you have a good evening the rest of your day today.